All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Silas.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Zane.
And we are coming to you here live from Missouri.
The bunker.
Our studio
Where Dad runs a discipleship program for teenage boys, where Zane works for him and where I sort of work for him.
Does he run it
Sort
out
of.
of this room?
Yes. No, he does not run out of this room, but it's a lot of things are being run out of this room as we go forward. We usually do a little bit of a life update, but we just did that.
Yeah, we did.
And so we were going to do a little bit of what's your favorite brand of ice cream?
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm very serious.
Oh,
I take this
easy.
very seriously.
All right.
Tillamook is the greatest ice cream brand.
Wow,
Hands
Mr.
down.
Rich Boy.
Did you say the biggest?
No, it's the greatest.
Okay, so
The
fun
greatest
fact,
of all time.
Zane's wife used to run a cinnamon roll shop, and they sold Tillamook. So that's actually
So
just...
that's a shameless plug, basically.
yeah, that wasn't even...
All right.
It's also the
I
best
don't
because you
necessarily... I don't believe you.
Here's something I need to tell you. If your
Okay.
ice cream that you're buying from, Walmart says ice... Wait, no.
Ice cream?
No.
Yeah, I agree. It's
Frozen
good.
dessert. If it says frozen dessert,
Yeah,
it is not ice cream.
No,
It's
not.
soybean oil.
First of
Well, that's
all...
why it tastes so much better. I love frozen soybean oil.
my brand doesn't say frozen dessert.
What is
So
your brand's house? Tell us your brand. I'll know. I guess Bluebell.
It's the Boldman brand. It's Bluebell.
Oh, I was gonna say I like the Boldman brand too. When
What
Mom
do you
makes
think the
homemade ice
Boldman-
cream,
Oh, Mom's homemade ice cream.
that's all I care about. Yeah. Or if you're listening, shout out to you. I don't want to go on to restaurants. I don't want to buy ice cream. You make it everything. So keep doing it.
Yeah, and subscribe, Mom.
Yes, like and subscribe, and then see you tonight.
Well, that's weird.
He's talking about ice cream.
Yeah,
Okay.
ice cream.
So, and real quick, favorite flavor. This is especially
I
relevant.
thought we already did this.
You already
no?
asked.
I know,
us
but
this.
this is
Cherry
different.
vanilla.
Cherry vanilla. Yeah, you said that.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Okay. The new seasonal flavor that's out is peppermint bark. If you haven't tried
You
peppermint
talked
bark,
about
It's a
Bluebell ice
waste.
cream,
Don't
did
get
I?
it. It's not that good.
Have I really talked about this
Yeah,
already?
we did this
Oh.
on podcast.
But
It's
if
not
you're
a
if you're an
waste.
ice cream supplier, if you want to drop down a couple truckloads,
Yeah, if you want to
like and
we
subscribe.
we could mention the brand.
Yeah, there you
it'll
go.
be Zane's new favorite because clearly he's easy to buy.
That's true. He's like a lobbyist.
That's his
Just give
goal.
me free ice cream enough. I'll love it.
If you have free ice cream or if you're a pack, Zane is available.
All right, moving on.
On that note,
Okay, so today we have a very fun topic that'll be an interesting. It's kind of a hot button topic.
Oh,
I think it's fun.
yeah. Hot topics are always fun.
Yeah, Zane, bring it on.
Lead it on, baby.
We're going to talk about self-esteem.
Dun,
Everybody's
dun,
favorite topic.
dun.
Myself, right?
It's my favorite topic.
Yeah, it's like, that Toby Keith song, I want to talk about me, I want to talk about number one.
We don't listen to secular music
Not
on this
heard that
podcast.
song.
I've actually.
I don't
heard
know that I've ever.
That was a
heard
huge song for a while, and I listened to it the other day, and I
in
was
the
like,
'90s, maybe.
this is kind of horrible. But
That's why we don't like Toby Keith. We like Tim McGraw.
Toby Keith. I mean, anyway.
anyways.
Go listen to our last episode on discernment.
Yes.
music.
Zane.
So we kind of were talking about how one of the big issues that we deal with families coming into our program is a lot of these kids have been around the block, so to speak, when it comes to therapy and counseling. Most of these kids have been to their school counselor, they've been to a private counselor,
Maybe their church.
they've been in church, state, whatever's been available to their parents at that point. They pretty much tried it all.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big messages that is very common in all of their cases is this idea of self-esteem. And I think this has become a pretty big topic. There's people that have written books about this recently. But I think in parenting, it comes up a lot. And so when we're talking about self-esteem, we're talking about this idea that when your child is struggling, whether it's
Making friends.
academically,
Failing at
sports,
something.
jobs, whatever it is.
Lacking
What you
motivation.
should do as a parent is to build them up just automatically.
Boost their self-esteem.
Boost their self-esteem. And build up is probably not a good way to say it. Yeah, boost their self-esteem. And so what does that look like practically, Aaron? What do we see?
Yeah. So before we sort of push back on it a little bit, I would just first say I've done, this business of Future Men we're in our 24th year right now. And in that, probably with maybe a 15% exception, every single application in the history of Future Men, about 500 and some applications for kids who've come here, there's a section on there. What do you think is the present problem, the main problem? And almost without fail, it's my son has low self-esteem. My son, just needs to feel better about himself. It's a super common thought. So I don't think they're wrong in the sense of they see something missing there. But I think our world is sort of, our culture is sort of like sold us a bag of goods that might not be what we think it is. Yeah. And definitely there's how we see something is not necessarily like what it really is. So the world's idea of self-esteem, it could be a link between like confidence. It could be a link between like a, self, like, awareness. It could be like just a joy even. I mean, we conflate a lot of things with that word. And thus, when our kid's having a problem, we think, oh, he just needs to have more self-esteem. He needs to feel better about himself. But reality is, wait a second, what's he doing? Mm-hmm. Right. So we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of, because the world wants answers. I always tell the kids at Future Men in my worldview classes, which is like group counseling, basically, I'll tell them all the time, look, the world is just as hungry for their kids to succeed, their kids not to do drugs, their kids to be not looking at pornography or not disrespecting mom and dad or, having a career path. They want to help too, right? Not just the Christians, but how they voice it, what they call things is going to be different than what we're calling it at Future Men. And it's not just semantics. It's not just, well, you call it self-esteem, we call it confidence, or we call it, Christ esteem. I worked for a program once and that was their big thing. I was like, let's push Christ esteem. I'm like, well, what does that even mean?
Plus, it doesn't even roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't. So we'll talk about what it actually means and then what you actually should be looking to implant in your kids if you're trying to stay, within the biblical mandate of Scripture, so you're blessed by Christ, right, and by God for like what you're doing. And then not be leading them down a road that's, I would say, is dangerous and actually counterproductive to what you want.
Why is that dangerous? Why is the idea of inflating your kids' self-esteem a very potentially extremely harmful road to go down?
Well, I think if we kind of back up a little bit, this idea of self-esteem is really from like the psychology world. It started with Freud, I think, back when he kind of came up with the idea of the id, the ego, and the superego. And basically it's this idea that we have to protect ourselves from our conscience, which the conscience isn't seen as something that's good or helpful for people. It's actually just something that's stopping you. It's holding you back. It's making you feel bad about yourself. And in this worldview, the highest good is feeling good. Yeah. So that becomes something that's a problem, right? We have to get rid of the conscience. So how that plays out a lot of times in counseling situations or a lot of times in the home with parents, because they're hearing this type of worldview, is even if my child is doing something wrong, like objectively wrong as a Christian, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to deal with that the way that it should be dealt with. I'm gonna give them false praise. I'm gonna continue to be their biggest cheerleader and whatever they're doing, out of a fear of I don't want to hurt my kid, right? Yeah. But I think it stems from this ideology.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you go back in time a little bit to the 1980s. Roll back.
I was dead.
Here I am. Well, you weren't dead. You just were,
not alive, which is dead.
Maybe. I'm sitting in a sports.
You can't say dead.
I'm sitting in a sports banquet.
Unalive.
And my dad was the principal. Well, he was the owner of the school, right? He ran a church and had a Christian school.
I know where this is going.
And it's the football banquet. And I played football because it was a Christian school, small, so I made the team, of course. And they had an award called, most inspirational player. And what that really means is you can't play worth beans, but let's give you an award anyway because your dad owns the school. Now,
were you really bad?
No, but I'm like, I wasn't most inspirational, man. Come on. I mean, that could be good.
It's like getting most improved.
Well, exactly. It's the same idea of everybody gets a trophy. And it's like, so if you go back in time, this isn't new, right? You say there's a lot of books being written about it. Well, in the 80s, men like Jay Adams and, some of the early guys in the Christian counseling world, they were hitting this already.
Yeah.
right? And like, Jim Owens, another guy who wrote a pretty strong book against this idea of self-esteem. And reality is, again, the world's looking for help too. But we've just sort of like, as Christians and as, people who love their kids, we just sort of buy the ideas, but we sort of whitewash them a little bit. But kids aren't dumb. So Zane mentions false praise, and that means your kid does something, he fails at something in life, in reality. And instead of just calling it what it is, you didn't study enough, or, you just don't have a lot of talent in that area. Or if let me help you figure out a way to better practice, to better study, to see if we can get some improvement. We just try to like build them up with our words.
Yeah.
The kids know it's not real, right? When I went up and got that award, all I felt was my friends all like think I'm an idiot. And, it's like I sat the bench, but here I am, most inspirational. It's like, maybe.
Inspired for what?
Yeah. So it was tough. It was like, I wanted to feel good too. And I'm sure my dad and mom wanted to like me to feel good. But reality is, I'm not that great at sports. I can admit it now. Back then, maybe not. Now I know sports got me bad shoulders, a bad neck. I'm not sure it's worth all this old man syndromes from football, but apparently it was. But anyway, that's what false praise is. It's an idea of like, we're telling them something that isn't necessarily true just so they feel better about themselves. And the question is, where's that line, or what's the correct understanding of how do we want our kid to feel about themselves? Like one of the moms that wrote, this is a while back. I've had this same conversation several times, but I remember this one specifically. I was talking to her and she was telling me on the phone, like, if he could just feel better about himself. And I said, can I ask you a couple questions? She's like, yeah. I said, okay, when's the last time he's ever went in and like seen the kitchen dirty, seen you down about something, or been in your car and you haven't had a chance to like pick it up, clean it out, or do anything? When's the last time you ever just thought, I'm going to serve my mom by doing something for her? And she's like, I don't remember any time. I said, okay. When's the last time he's ever gone out of his way to like talk to you when he sees you're down, or try to like, pour into your life, or say kind words to you, or buy you a gift or whatever? Never. And I said, and you're wanting him to focus more on himself. You're wanting him to feel better about himself. I said, that's not the problem. That's all he thinks about anyway.
Yeah.
How about help him see, like the Bible talks about, like, well, each esteem others is more important than themselves. You've probably got that verse on your list. So when we come to it, I won't steal your thunder.
No, you go.
But reality is, right, we're just missing the mark. Mm-hmm. We're trying to help them be confident, be leaders, be strong men and women, of our families and of the body of Christ, right? By feeling better about themselves. And reality is that isn't going to do it.
Well, let me ask. So, I can answer my own question here, I
Sure.
guess. I think if you're sitting here thinking like, the first question comes to mind that like, in theory, this should work. Because if you're telling somebody, they're really great, you'd think they would kind of aspire to that and believe it and then be great, right? And there's a part of that what you say matters. Absolutely. Sure. It's a huge part of that. But I think if you just think about, if you as the boss or a coach of a team, sports is easier. If I'm having a kid show up and I am falsely inflating what they're doing, the only person I'm hurting is really them and the rest of the team, because all it's teaching them is that like what I'm doing is enough. Like I think the biggest lie that everybody's hearing these days, especially like I think it's especially females, is that they're being told is like,
oh, he is so sexist.
Well, man. I hate to say it, but I think it's true. I think
and subscribe in the comments if you're sexist like Silas, or put a comment that maybe
what do you mean like and subscribe in the comments.
He's just trying to
I don't
get
know.
people to subscribe.
Anyway, I think the lie that we've told a lot of kids and kind of an entire generation is that like you're enough.
Right.
And that's horrible to tell a kid if you think about it, because you're not only are you saying something that's not true, because no kid is there. A 9-year-old isn't enough. Like he's not capable of hardly squat, and that's okay. That's completely appropriate for a 9-year-old. But you continuing to inflate them and tell them like you sat on the bench, but you did just as much as everybody else. It's like, it's not only dangerous because you're lying, but it's also dangerous because like you said, like you're not an idiot. You
right,
know,
the kid knows.
Like
yeah.
I couldn't catch a football to save my life. If you put me out there, I'd fumble and we'd lose every game.
Now, just as dangerous, and we'll get into this, right? Because I can see the pushback coming from youth pastors, Christian counselors, maybe, and parents who have read a lot of books. Yeah, but what about, our worth in Christ? What about like Psalm 139, you're fearfully and wonderfully made? Those are true. And that's all legit. And you need to be instilling that in the kid, but without like legs to it. all the kid hears is wah, 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 right? And they don't believe it. So this is where, okay, we just want to help you learn how to like realize, okay, what is exactly their worth in Christ? How do we get them to realize you may never be good at soccer, or you may never have like the same social skills as your brother or as this kid that you're like wishing you were more like? It doesn't matter, right? What are you doing in terms of what Christ has asked of you? Do you see yourself as, like you're living for kingdom cause, not popularity, or not, I was the best football player, right? If I had, instead of getting most inspirational, if it was true, okay, that'd be one thing, right? You always were encouraging the kids, and man, we counted on you, like that movie Rudy, right? Or whatever it was called. I think it was Rudy back in the 80s, right? But the football kid that was terrible, but his team really liked him, whatever. There was probably some truth in that, and he knew it, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember the movie that well. But like with our kids, it's the same idea. It's like, yeah, you can they can be the most encouraging kid in your household. And that is a spiritual gift, and that's amazing, right? They have the gift of encouragement. Wonderful. Push it. But if a kid who's just lazy, and you're telling him what a great kid he is and all this, you have all this potential. You're like, God has a wonderful plan for your life. And it's like, Jeremiah 29:11, let's take that verse written to Israel and let's apply it to our kid today who has no direction. It's like, well, okay, maybe. But is there a better way of doing it that's actually going to get them the ability to get to like at least strive towards that in a healthy manner? And you can still fail. The kid may never make the soccer team. Who cares? That may not be God's will for his life. But if he's learned application, yes, caring for others, yes, balance and priority, all those things you're teaching them, he'll win. Keep going.
Well, I think when you do that too, you're robbing them of their grit, of their ability to challenge themselves and try and fail. If you're just telling them they're already awesome at everything, right? There's a way as a parent you can build your kid up and encourage them to do better that isn't negative, isn't going to like hurt them, but is going to give them like a reality check. And like, if you want to do this, you're going to have to, if you want to be good at this, you're going to have to do better. You're going to have to try harder. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Now, I think where maybe sometimes it feels like this is a negative thing is when we put a value stamp on those things, and we say this is what gives somebody value, and we buy that as parents and as like a Christian culture, right? It's like being really good at sports is what gives somebody value. So I want to build my child up because I want them to feel like they have value,
right?
But that's not biblical.
Yeah,
right?
I think
like our value is fixed. And like you said, like you don't want to just stop there and say, we're made in God's image. There's no condemnation for those who are in Christ. Like those things are true. And that's a promise to us and something that does give us value. But then to do what?
Right. How do you use that?
Yeah. So I think we just have to frame things for our children because they're looking at what we say is valuable, and they're going to apply that to themselves, and they're going to say like this is, or they're going to put their time and their energy into that.
So we've had several of these young men come to our program who are cutting on themselves and who have possibly either overdosed or given what looks like a feeble attempt at overdose. Right? They don't really. Maybe didn't quite realize what they were doing, but it was like alcohol poisoning or like maybe like, oh, this kid tried to commit suicide. And then you hear how he tried to commit suicide. And it's like, okay, it was obviously more of a cry for help than it was a genuine attempt. But oh my goodness, if it's your kid, right? It's like, okay, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Right. So when those things are happening, again, it's like, how do we balance that as a Christian parent with when Paul says, no man hath at any time ever hateth his own flesh, but rather loves and protects it, right? Because he's talking about how husbands love their wives, right? And Paul says basically, hey, just, love her like you love yourself and we're going to be good. He's right. And even those boys, like I'm thinking of one young man in particular, I was talking with him and heavy cutter. I mean, just heavy. And I just asked him, I said, I got to ask you a weird question, man. I said, is there something in your life that your parents don't know about? Something you've done, something you've hidden, something that's like, because when you've got shame and guilt and you have a way of like, sort of like, almost like the old flagellation with the Jesuit priests, right? Where they beat themselves and it somehow like pays for their sins, right? we're all sort of in that boat. If we have like a bad experience, or like if I could just somehow pay for this, then I'll feel better. And it's like, it doesn't make you feel better, right? Maybe temporarily, especially when those boys who do cut on themselves, because that's this whole different podcast. But like, there is like a certain level of like serotonin, dopamine release that our bodies are naturally trying to like fight or flight, win this situation. And the kid feels this sort of rush, and it's like, oh, I feel a little better. Mm-hmm. Well, 20 minutes later, he doesn't. And now he's got a stinking scar. And, and now his parents put him in a, maybe in a mental hospital to be, for an evaluation. And it's like, well, that wasn't the answer. But I was talking to this young man, and it's like, yeah, there was definitely sin that got uncovered. And it's like, there is a way out of this, but it's not me telling you what a wonderful person you are, or you penalizing yourself. And like, now I feel I'm just this horrible, downcast person. It's like, you are a believer, because this kid was a believer. I'm like, what does Christ want from you? What is he asking from you? And yeah, anytime you are living in hidden sin, it's going to bring dark consequences. You've got to expose that. So there's I don't want to get off topic here, but like, we just got to be careful as parents. Where is whatever it is we're seeing, where's it coming from? What's the root here? And are we giving them something that has legitimate feet to get them out of it?
I think earlier you were talking about there's like this thing that's missing, right? Yeah. That you're wanting to give them, and parents see it, kids feel it. And I think what we could say, like, they could understand logically that I was made in God's image, and they can understand that if they are Christians, that they've been forgiven, and can feel comfort in that. But I think reality is, like, God designed us to do something, to be right, to function for a purpose. And especially, I mean, we see this especially with younger boys, but I think it's true with girls too. Whenever they come to our program and they start figuring out what they're equipped for, what they're good at, what they can put their time and energy towards, that's
like the apprenticeships.
Yeah, the apprenticeships. Even in, like, we see it sometimes in roles they play at the house. Like, all of these things start to give them this sense of, oh, I'm actually like doing what I was designed to do.
Part of a community.
I'm serving a purpose.
Yeah, I have a role here.
Yeah. And I think, one of the worst things you can do is rob them of finding that. And part of finding that is you have to be honest with yourself. Like, you don't tell somebody that's terribly uncoordinated that they're going to be an NBA star someday, and that they should just like put all of their time and energy into that, because they're not going to feel like they're going to fulfill their purpose, because they know that they're not good enough to make it. Yeah.
Or sadly, if they actually believe what you're saying and they put all their eggs in that basket, and then when they only make the high school basketball team, now they got like, well, I have nothing now.
Well, I think they always say, like, I think this is scary because they always say, the road to hell is paved with good intention.
Sure.
And there's no parent out there that wants to raise an insecure, unconfident kid.
Right.
Yeah. So the right solution to that seems to be continual, unwarranted affirmation all the time. And what it does, I think, is it really, like, when I think about our little girls who are learning to walk right now, every time they fall, like, what do? We clap and tell them, like, great job, you fell down, that was awesome. Not because, like, it's good to fall, but because, like, it's really because we don't want them to cry, and, like, things falling is a big deal. I'm going to be real. But what happens is when your kid's learning to walk, it's whatever. When your kid's 5 and he misses a score, well, then you start to, like, justify it for them. And you start to, like, cover it up. Like, no, you're really not that bad. And no, the kid's really not that bad. And you do want to teach them that missing a goal is not the end of the world. Amen. But when you tell them, like, you're okay, you don't have to improve, I think all you're really doing to that kid is they're now seeing themselves in the mirror as, like, my parents think I'm all of this, and all my friends think I'm all of this. So the moment I'm not all of this, now there's something wrong with me. And so but they don't want to talk about it because it creates so much shame and guilt in your kids in the long run, because you've sort of taken away permission for them to be anything but perfect, because that's all you've told them they are their whole life.
Yeah. And on that, I think it's also proper goals, because in America, right, or our culture in general, we've really bought the lie that you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want if you just want it bad enough, right? And the reality is, it's just not true. Some of our kids have said, I want to pursue college, and it's like, okay, great. Let's see if you got it. And some have not, right? Everybody's not cut out for the same thing, right? Like Hawken, since he was like, oh gosh, probably 10, has been a very hard worker, but putting like the pieces together academically, even in high school, he never enjoyed it. It was always a struggle. And it's like, okay, that's not your strength. What is your strength? You like to finish a job. You like to like, please others with like, I just did this job for them, and look how dad, Papa's happy now, or look how, this person like really enjoyed that. Right. So there's different lanes we travel in. Don't be afraid to just be honest with your kid. Some are going to have more talent, and like, I should probably help them pursue, even a sport, because their body's built differently. Maybe they're taller than normal. They're stronger than usual, or they really have a crazy amount of grit that like whatever they put their mind to, they succeed. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to try? But as a parent, find those opportunities, but also really quickly understand what's their natural limitations, though.
Yeah.
Even academically, and it's tough. But again, just find the balance as a parent to be not bought into the American idea of you can be whatever you want, because it's not true, and also not to like think, don't try anything because it's just too hard. You have to build up resilience. You have to build up, this idea of confidence, which people would call self-esteem. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Call it what you want. But it's just the ability of this kid to think, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And I've learned in life already, if I'm good at it or if I fail at it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's my worth. It might just mean this probably isn't the best thing for me to pursue, or I really like it. I want to get better at it. It's worth putting the energy in. Great.
Well, I think what you said there should be our goal, which is a kid that can do something and fail, or do something and succeed, and in neither situation does he see that as his worth.
Right.
We talked about that this morning. Like that's something like we still struggle with on a daily basis. Is like my worth is found in me providing for my family, or my job, or helping at my church. But I think the true confidence is knowing no matter what I do, it doesn't affect my worth. But that doesn't come from telling your kid you're enough or you've done enough. It comes from them really knowing I was never enough and Christ has like made me enough. And I think that's the difference. And if you teach them, because then all their worth comes from Christ rather than themselves. Because the moment you start to pull it from yourself or teach your kids to do the same is the one where you set yourself up to fall, because you'll never measure up. And that's sort of like, thank God.
Well, I think if we come at this from like a discipleship angle, right? Like in the family, instead of spending all your time as a mom or dad trying to shield them from that feeling of failure when they do fail, take that as an opportunity for discipleship and have a conversation with them. Like, okay, what went wrong here? Like, how can you do better next time? Is this something that's worth putting your time towards, or is there something else that would be worth putting your time towards? Like, don't be afraid to have those conversations with them and think like, oh, like recognizing the reality of what happens is going to hurt them. No, you actually have an opportunity right there to help them figure out what they are actually good at and what they actually are called to. And I think as a parent, especially once they start getting into their teen years, that becomes like one of your main roles.
Well, think about
you're trying to help them.
You want a healthy kid.
Launch. Yeah.
So if you have a daughter that's like trying out for the girls volleyball team at her high school, right, or whatever, junior high, and it's like she's kind of not that good, and you guys recognize it pretty quickly. Maybe her coordination level just isn't all that great, but she's super kind. She is encouraging. She's got grit, so she'll show up. She'll do the practices. If you're telling her, okay, honey, what's our goal in this? If it really is to be part of a team, if it really is exposure for social encounters, I want to have friends, and this is a neat way to do it. I can be a witness for Christ, right? I don't have to be the best. I can be a good support person. You're teaching her a ton through that. You kind of suck at volleyball, so just quit.
And I think
that's not bad.
Teaching her to where she learned it, to where she understands, because it's so true. Like if you look at every sports team that's successful ever, guarantee there's someone on the team that is definitely not nearly as good as their
probably half the team.
Star player.
Yeah.
But what they do is they pull the rest of the team together to actually like fight or win or play as a team. That person is as important as the star wide receiver that can catch no matter what you throw at them. They don't get the spotlight, but I think them knowing that and not expecting to be the star receiver or get all their affirmation from everybody's like praises is huge.
Well, and wait till they get into marriage, right?
Yeah.
Where now all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's not glamorous. Maybe they're lower middle class at best, so they're barely making their bills, but she's like content. She's like, oh, I know my place in this, right? I'm encouraging my husband. I'm faithful. I'm like, we're enjoying living life together in this community. She learned that through your home, her sports exposure, her school exposures, right? If they were like genuinely, I think, discipled through, where you keep the focus and you learn, okay, what life lesson can come from this? Because we often think that as parents, but we lose it in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. When they strike out, we're only worried about like, keeping your eye on the ball, or, the sun was in his eyes, or, whatever excuses we're making. It's like, well, yeah, I help him get better if he can. But if you've already doing everything you can and you're kind of playing at the top of your game, then enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you're not going to be, you probably won't go next level, but was that your goal? If it was your goal and you failed, okay, well, now you got to deal with, okay, so how do we deal with failure? Because maybe your kid really did want to be like Asa, really wanted to be a fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force, right? Then he finds out, okay, your vision isn't good enough. He thought about surgeries. He looked at a couple different surgery options. He thought about, is there any workarounds for this? And he finally came to the conclusion there isn't. And it's like, okay, well, his whole life wasn't involved in, if I'm not this, then I'm nothing.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so here's my reality. Now what do I do? How do I go forward? Right. And he had a backup plan. And it's like, yeah, good. Backup plans are necessary.
Yeah.
Even when you are a success, even like we're running a business right now. And I know, in our economy, man, when the bottom falls out at different times through real estate or through, whatever, bad leadership in our country, we could go under. And it's like, okay, so what do we do? How do we pick up? Was our worth more in our success than we thought it was, right? And you might not be able to determine that in your own life, because sometimes it's hard to evaluate, but you are raising your kids. And we can easily see he's not going to be, like he was in theater or she's in theater. It's like, okay, well, they're not that good. And they're probably not going to be a famous Hollywood actor or actress, and I probably don't want them to be anyway. But it's a great social experiment. Let's keep it at that. And let's make sure that we're discipling them through that so they don't lose focus. And they've gained all kinds of confidence, even though they stink at it. But they go out on stage and they perform strong, not with hesitation. And even though they're not that good, they had fun, right? And it's like they're going to get that, quote, self-esteem you're wanting. I think if you're hitting it from a very honest perspective as a parent, and not filling them full of like, hot air, so to speak, of your own little, maybe your own aspirations that you missed. I don't know.
Well, I think it goes the other direction too, because I think the easy one is to say, like, when you fail, well, your identity falls out from under you real quick because you realize you're not all that and a bag of chips. But I think it goes the other direction too. When you talk about someone, so like we have a family member who was extremely good at football. I mean, he was a quarterback in the NFL. He was very good.
One of my sons?
No. Not even close.
Oh, a cousin.
Not even remotely close.
That's very true.
Like a third cousin. We're not even that close to the good genes. But, and he was all that. But I remember Grandpa wrote him a letter, and it was just reminding him that, like, hey, you're really good at sports. That's awesome. You can go higher. You can get like these amazing contracts. But knowing where your value comes from and that it doesn't involve this, it also gives you permission to say no to going higher. Like when you're talking about business, it's okay to look and know we could make twice the amount of money, and we're not going to because it's not worth it might not be the risk. It might not be worth the time and the effort. But if your identity is all wrapped up in being the very best that there ever was, you're going to lose everything for the sake of that one thing you're chasing. And I think it goes both directions. And it's just kind of interesting because we usually think about the failure, but it can also affect how your children succeed.
The success.
Because a lot of these, if you're listening, I mean, there's a lot of parents out there that have incredibly successable children. You really could be the father or the mother of a genius. And do you really want that to be their identity for the rest of their life?
Well, I've had two different fathers coming to me.
Which, by the way, you're the father of a genius.
That's true.
It's me.
Shout out to Walker if you're listening. Not Silas. I've had two different fathers come to me about a young man that was wanting to pursue their daughter. And I knew this young man because he worked for me. And I was telling the dads in this situation, I said, here's something to keep in mind. What are you wanting for your daughter? Mm-hmm. Because this particular young man, he had like, he's never had a passion for a particular like job. Like I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a pastor, or I want to be a, businessman. His thing was just faithful, on time, never called in sick, always reliable. You explain the job well, he'll do it well, right? He's 100% reliable. But I watched him fill his extra time in his life with learning things about marriage, going through all these different books on how to be a godly man, learning all these different things about parenting. And I'm like, if you want your daughter to be married to a man that's not going to cheat on her, that's going to raise your grandchildren honestly, very faithfully to the glory of God, you win. If you're wanting a guy that's for sure never going to have a problem paying the bills, this guy's going to have, she'll always have a new car under her hind end or whatever. It's like, he's not it. Yeah. Right? What do you want? And I think that's important for us to remember, because one day we will have people pursuing our kids for marriage, or as we're raising them as little kids, right? We're setting them up for what's next in their life. And they're going to be like always frustrated, down on themselves. And we're going to always going around trying to pick up the pieces, or we're enjoying the ride with them. But it takes intentionality. And like Zane is trying to tell us this morning, right? It takes a proper understanding and description of self-worth, self-esteem, whatever you want to call it, confidence, whatever. So,
yeah, that's solid.
Yeah. Well, I think it all kind of goes back to pride and humility. Because, like you said, we don't have to be taught how to love ourselves, right? We have to be taught how to love our wives. We have to be taught how to love others, because it is a natural inclination of the human heart to put yourself first and to love yourself. So it's kind of wild that this self-esteem, this idea of self-esteem is kind of spread so much, even in the Christian world, because it is exactly the opposite of what Jesus tells us to do. When we're supposed to consider others as more important than ourselves. We shouldn't be spending all this time trying to love ourselves and build ourselves up in this way. And this could be a whole different conversation.
But, and it will be.
And it will be at some point. But I think really that's what it comes down to. It's like this. It sounds nice, and it's kind of like dressed up to look like it's good parenting, or it's good counsel. But really, it's encouraging a pride that God calls his followers to lay down.
And at even at best that maybe, but maybe at worst, it's you're setting your kid up for something he can't keep doing.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. And it's like, man, if we have a hand in that, what a bummer.
So what do you do? Where do you point your kid if they fail at a game, or if they fail at a job, or if they really mess up? How do you? Because you don't want them to be down the dumps. And the key to this isn't you miss that goal, sure hope you feel bad, you didn't practice enough.
Right.
It's not like that. So what's the alternative here?
I think it's exactly like what I've said. I think you get on this podcast several times. It's like the sex talk. It's not hey,
so your kid misses the goal, so you give them the sex talk?
Oh, yeah, it helps every time. Someday, man, it's going to be great. No, ding dong. The sex talk meaning it's not a one and done. It's not I had that talk with my kid when he was 13. We're done. Or I gave him that book, almost 12. Good job. Now you know. No, it's like this is discipleship every week with the sex talk. You're talking about, the biology, but you're talking about relationships. You're talking about, striking out and succeeding, and what does it mean to cultivate, romance? It's like ongoing from like 13 until they're married, right? And it's like, this is the same confidence in everything they're doing, or I would still call it confidence, even if they stink at it. It's still confidence. They know, I'm probably not going to be the best player on the team, but I'm having fun. I'm with my friends. And it's like, I'm contributing. I'm an active member of this team. And without me, hey, the bench would be cold. No, I'm just kidding. But without me, it's like, we do need more team members. Someone's got to go in there and give these guys a break once in a while, or they're tired. Yeah. And it's like, that's my role. I don't care. It's a great role. I'll have fun. I'll go on the road trips. I'll meet all the kids. But if we're telling our kid that going into it, just assessing and being real, way more fun, way less pressure. And your kid isn't sad because, he didn't get to play as much. Now you're blaming the coach, and you become one of those parents that the coach sees show up and they just cringe and think, this is going to be terrible. You don't want that.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think probably part of this self-esteem movement is a reaction against really bad examples of parents, basically like, there's one in all the movies and stuff where it's like the dad who's really hard to please, and he's always constantly coming down hard on his son who's not doing as good as he wants him to do, or the overbearing mom that's like, you can do better, you must do better, better grades, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think, it's kind of like when we talk about pendulum parenting, you can't just react against that and say, this is the right thing. You have to really think through, okay, what part of that is bad? Well, obviously it's like tearing down your kids with your words. It's expecting things of them that you shouldn't be expecting. That's
good.
It's all of these motives that are wrong in your heart as a parent. So you get rid of that, but that doesn't mean you then start lying to your kids.
And they wouldn't see it as lying.
No.
I'm encouraging him. I love him. It's like, yeah, I get it, but you're lying. That's how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
So
Awkward.
And that was a buffalo.
I think when you're dealing with this, a good verse that I have to come back to a lot, just personally, is John 12:43 says, "For they love the praise of men more than the praise of God." And that's not that. There's another verse that talks about, for those who've received their praise of men have already received their reward.
Right. Yep.
And I think when you're talking about this conversation specifically in your own life and in your kids' life, because I think a lot of us like to be praised for what our kids do. And so we maybe unintentionally encourage our kids to do things, not because it's the best for them, but because we're going to get praise from it as well. And our kids are going to show up well on the football field or in church or wherever that may be. And so it keeps coming back to sort of ruthlessly examining your own intentions with your children. Like, am I really trying to raise a child that finds their identity in the Lord, that does all they do to glorify the Lord? Or am I trying to raise a child that makes me feel really good about the job I did as a parent?
And that's a hard line.
Yeah,
it's tough. Yeah, it's blurry.
And it's also hard because if you really do raise a child that seeks to glorify God and that seeks to find their identity in the Lord, then that will feel good as a parent because they're going to show up well. But don't chase the results. Chase the motivation. Are they doing what they do to glorify God? That's the kid I want to raise. And I think that's the kid.
They'll definitely be secure.
Yeah. And because they know, again, it's like you're not enough. And that's like the best news you could ever hear because you never have to be enough. That's the whole point of the gospel. If you could ever be enough in any world, you wouldn't need a savior.
Right.
So it's no,
wow, that was a good
Zane. Did you read "You're Not Enough"?
How about
That's okay by
Amen?
Allie
No,
Beth?
but I'm convinced I came up with that quote before she came up with that book.
Oh, you did.
I tell my
You
wife.
didn't write a whole
She
book
stole
on
it from you.
Yeah, well, never mind. I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. So anyway, so it's just really coming back to that, like, don't get caught in the trap of telling your kids you're all that, because you have to be. Are they all that in your world? Yeah, kids are amazing. I love kids. I want to raise very confident children, but a huge part of that is not lying to them and then not putting my own expectations on them, because they'll grow up very insecure and very prone to hiding any sort of mess up because they don't feel like they can mess up.
One funny thing on that, people ask me a lot.
This is funny.
That's true.
Serious.
People have asked me a lot, like, the sort of like, why do you have so many kids, right? 14 kids. Wow, you're nuts and all that. And you kind of feel like you are. But now even with the grandkids, second generation, it's funny. It's like the pressure of success or failure within your kids, it takes a different perspective when you have a lot, because it's like, okay, the reality is, there's going to be a big variance in what success looks like. Some are going to have better jobs, some won't. Some are going to be, who knows the different variations.
You're going to be proud of some and ashamed of others.
Maybe. With one kid or two kids, maybe, right? It's like, man, that's intense pressure. And it's like, I succeeded or I failed. Just know this is a self-check for your own gut first, of like, well, what's my worth? What am I basing my success on with my child too? Because if I have one and he's homeless, or I have one and he's like, this amazing pastor, it's like, okay, well, still
I'm amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to get in that trap.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's more of it's not a crapshoot by any means, but like when you're, when you have a bunch of kids, you do realize this is not in my control at all. And that's a good thing to realize. I think, well, now we just pray for him, and now we just be faithful and let God worry about where it ends up. I'm faithful. I know that. I've done my best, and I've stunk at it many times, but I've done my best. And where I saw error or somebody else pointed out error, self-corrected, right? Mm-hmm. And, take it for what it is.
Well, I think too, we can sort of finish on this, but from the kid's perspective, being raised with 13 siblings, everybody at C of O or Nash is about to go, and like a lot of our friends laugh at like the Boldman confidence, and we kind of get ripped on for that, or the Boldman cockiness sometimes.
For being confident?
No.
I think it's the cocky part.
The cockiness, maybe more. I just didn't want to rip on it. But it's kind of
Their
funny
mom.
because I think a byproduct of being raised with 13 siblings is you realize you never really get to be the star of the show.
Oh yeah.
Like we don't even do birthdays. Like if it's your birthday, it's your birthday. Like my birthday's this
When it's
week.
convenient.
So we're also celebrating moms and my little sisters. And it's like, so even quote unquote your day, it's not really about you. It's about all of us. And so, and that raised some things in you that could be potentially worse. Like you feel like you always have to measure up, or you feel like you always have to be like the loudest in the room. Like
You
there's-
do.
Yeah. There's definitely some things there. Okay. I have my own closet.
Scars.
But what
Siblings in the comments.
but it's
Yeah, like and subscribe. All his
it's really
comments.
funny because like I watch like Nash. I hope he's listening to this. Actually, Nash, if you're listening,
He
to
won't
this, I
listen
love
this
you.
far. As we're almost done.
Yeah, he'll play
quit.
he'll play frisbee, which is like we play a stupid sport. And man, he sucks sometimes. Like he will just
No,
have
not
the
Nash.
worst play ever, and he'll still be like super confident and smack talking the next play.
That sounds
But
like me.
And it's partially like whatever, like who really cares? But it's also like he knows like I can fail, and it really doesn't matter. Like no one's
That's good.
really looking.
Yeah.
Like and I think the kids get caught up in that. If you're the only kid and you mess up, the only person mom and dad was watching was you. Versus when you really fail with a lot of kids, it's like no one really cares. You kind of have to get over it and move on and try to get that confidence back. And you can say a lot about the ways that can go wrong, and it can, but it's also like it's helpful in this essence where you never really get the luxury or the danger of having all that pressure on you. Like you can kind of skate by sometimes. That's kind of nice.
Have a bunch
So
of
have
kids.
a ton of kids.
There's
so
the
if some of them
answer.
mess up, you can be proud of one of them.
Which one?
That's the mess.
Oh, Walker. Good job, Walker.
Yeah, good job, Walker. Or Finn. Finn's cute.
She is cute.
You're
She-
so mean.
She likes cats.
Anyway, if you really want to hear more about Dad only being proud of some of his children, please subscribe, like, and
Not even
comment.
true.
Share this with your friends because it really does help us. And we hopefully, outside of the joking, we are being helpful to families
I
out
hope,
there.
yeah.
If you have questions or concerns, comment them. You can email them to us at futurefamiliespod@gmail.com. And last but not least, the top link in all of our show notes will be a link to our community group thing that we haven't named yet.
Future Families Academy.
Future Families Academy, which sounds very boring.
FFA, Future Farmers of America. We can steal their old blue
there we
jackets.
go.
It's already done. We already have merch.
Anyway, that's where we're going to be putting out a lot more content that's a little bit more exclusive, a little bit more focused, a little more coursework minded, more practical,
Yeah.
so to speak. And so if you're interested in that, you feel like that'd be helpful for you, go join that community now because it's free right
It's
now.
coming.
But it won't be free forever. And so if you want that, if you think it's interesting, go join and then share this with all your friends. And I'm being told to pause.
Yeah. So on that, right, what that's going to look like a little bit at least is, so if this episode in particular was like, okay, this is helpful, but how do I remember it all? How do I apply it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, the FFA will have like
We need to nix
one
this
section
right
on
now.
that, right, where you can actually download, hey, here's some like worksheets, here's some things you can be doing actively in your kid's life. It'll have the practical steps to doing these things.
It's going to be like just hyper DIY with your
Yeah.
kids. Here's the exact conversation you can sit down and have with your 8-year-old. Here's how you have the sex talk with your 14-year-old continually. Like very, very practical, not really theory, but a lot of like, here's how you can do it in your day-to-day life. So
And you can vary all you want within that, but having something in front of you is way easier. It's like watching a YouTube on changing your oil filter on your car if you've never done it or whatever. It's just nice to have somebody who's kind of laid it out there for you. It helps you walk with a little more confidence. So that's the goal.
yeah, so go join School Community and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Adios.
Peace.